7 days. That's all it took to go from a backyard that looked like the surface of the moon, cracked, bare, compacted dirt with not a single living thing growing in it, to a lush, breathtaking outdoor living space that honestly made my neighbors stop and stare over the fence. If you've been staring out your back window at a sad, lifeless yard and telling yourself that a real transformation would take months of work, thousands of dollars, and some kind of professional magic you don't have access to, I need you to stay right here, because everything you believe about that is about to change. This is the real story of how one completely ordinary backyard went from absolute zero to a dream outdoor space in exactly 7 days, and I'm going to walk you through every single step so you can do the same thing yourself. Let's set the scene first, because context matters. The backyard we started with was not just a little rough around the edges. It was the kind of outdoor space that makes you not want to go outside at all. The soil was so compacted from years of neglect and foot traffic that water would just sit on top of it after rain, pooling into muddy little ponds that took days to dry out. There wasn't a single patch of grass to speak of. Just hard, grey-brown dirt with a few stubborn weeds fighting for survival in the corners. No planting beds, no defined edges, no hardscaping, nothing. It was a blank slate, but not the inspiring kind. It was the overwhelming kind, the kind that makes most homeowners freeze up and do absolutely nothing because they don't even know where to begin. And that right there is exactly why so many American backyards stay stuck in that sad, neglected state for years. Not because homeowners don't care, but because nobody ever showed them the right sequence of steps to follow. The very first thing we did, and this is the step most beginners completely skip over, which is why their projects fail, was assess and grade the ground. Before any sod gets laid, before any plants go in the ground, before you spend a single dollar on materials, you have to understand what you're working with. We walked the entire yard and mapped out the slope. This matters more than people realize, because poor grading is the #1 cause of drainage problems, dead grass, and flooded patios in American backyards. The land needs to slope gently away from the house, ideally about 1 inch of drop for every 10 feet of distance, so that rainwater flows away from your foundation and doesn't turn your new lawn into a swamp. We used a simple rented plate compactor and about 2 yards of topsoil to regrade the low spots and create that proper slope. It sounds technical, but honestly, once you understand the concept, it's one of the most empowering things you can do as a homeowner, because you're solving a problem that will affect everything else you plant or build in that space. With the grading done and the soil loosened up and amended with a good layer of compost worked into the top few inches, we were ready to start making this yard look like something. We brought in rolls of Bermuda sod, and if you're in the northern part of the country, you'd want to go with Kentucky bluegrass or tall fescue instead, because nothing gives you that instant transformation quite like laying fresh sod. Seeding is a beautiful long-term option, but if you want results in a week, sod is your answer. We rolled it out in a brick-laying pattern, staggering the seams so there were no long continuous lines that could dry out and separate. Every single roll got pressed firmly into the soil, and we watered it deeply right after laying it, and I mean deeply, not just a quick spritz. New sod needs about 1 inch of water every single day for the first 2 weeks to establish its roots, and skipping that is the fastest way to watch your investment turn brown and die. While the sod was going down on the open lawn areas, we were simultaneously marking out where our hardscaping and planting beds were going to live. And this planning while doing approach is what made the 7-day timeline actually possible. Time in a garden transformation is everything, and learning to run parallel tasks instead of sequential ones is a skill that will serve you for every outdoor project you ever take on. Here's where things get really interesting, and honestly, where most backyard makeovers either become something truly special or fall completely flat. Anyone can lay sod and call it a day. A green lawn is nice, sure, but it's not a destination. It's not the kind of outdoor space that makes you want to pour a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning and just sit outside and breathe. What transforms a yard from simply green to genuinely livable, from a patch of grass into an actual outdoor room, is the layering of hardscaping, structure, and planting beds, and understanding how those three elements work together is the design insight that most homeowners never get told. This is the part of the process where we hit our first real challenge, and the lesson we learnt from it is one I want to make sure you hear clearly because it will save you serious time, money, and frustration. When we started laying out our hardscape zone, a simple patio area using natural flagstone pavers, we quickly discovered something that stopped us in our tracks. Beneath the section of the yard, the soil wasn't just compacted, it was unstable. There was a pocket of soft, almost sandy soil hiding under that hard crust. And if we had set our pavers directly on top without addressing it, the whole patio surface would have shifted and sunk within a single season. This is something that happens in backyards all across America, particularly in regions with clay-heavy or sandy soil. And it's the kind of thing you'd never know to look for unless someone told you. The fix wasn't complicated, but it was critical. We dug down about 4 inches in that patio zone, laid a compacted base of crushed gravel, specifically a 3/4 inch crushed stone, then added a 1-inch layer of coarse sand on top before setting our flagstones. That gravel base is what gives your hardscape stability, proper drainage, and longevity. Skip it, and your beautiful patio becomes a tripping hazard within 2 years. Do it right, and those same stones will still be perfectly level a decade from now. With the patio base sorted and the flagstones set with irregular natural gaps between them, gaps we later filled with creeping thyme, which is one of the most brilliant, low-maintenance ground cover plants you can use between pavers because it handles light foot traffic, releases a gorgeous scent when brushed, and comes back stronger every single year. We turned our full attention to the planting beds, and this is where the real design magic happened. We framed the outer edges of the yard with curved planting beds, and that single decision, choosing curves over straight lines, completely changed the feeling of the entire space. Straight-edged beds feel formal and rigid. Curved beds feel natural, relaxed, and intentional, like the garden grew that way on purpose. We used a simple garden hose laid on the ground to sketch out our curves before we ever touched a shovel, adjusting the shape until it felt right from every angle. Inside those beds, we layered plants according to what designers call the thriller, filler, and spiller method. And if you've never heard of this, write it down because it is the single most useful planting formula for creating beds that look professionally designed without hiring a professional. The thriller is your tall, bold, focal point plant. We used Carl Förster feather reed grass, which grows in stunning vertical columns and catches the light beautifully in the late afternoon. The filler is your mid-height, mounding plant that ties everything together. We chose Salvia nemorosa, a beautiful purple-spiked perennial that blooms from late spring all the way through summer and brings in pollinators like crazy. And the spiller is your low, cascading plant that softens the edge of the bed and creates that lush, overflowing look. We went with Creeping Jenny, a golden-green trailing plant that spreads gently over the bed edge and makes the whole composition feel alive and abundant. What nobody tells you about planting beds is that the soil preparation inside them matters just as much as the plants you choose. We mixed in a full 3 inches of compost into the native soil before planting anything, because even the most beautiful, well-chosen plants will struggle and disappoint you if they're fighting against poor, depleted soil. Feed the soil first, and the soil will feed your plants. That principle alone will make you a better gardener than 90% of the people who give up on their yards every single year. By day 5, something remarkable started happening, the kind of thing that reminds you exactly why you started this whole project in the first place. The sod had begun knitting its roots into the freshly graded soil, shifting from that slightly artificial, rolled-out look to something that genuinely resembled a real, established lawn. The Flagstone patio had taken its final shape, and the planting beds were full of life, color, and texture. Standing at the back door and looking out at what had been a barren, defeated patch of dirt just a few days earlier, it was honestly hard not to feel emotional. And that feeling, that deep, quiet satisfaction of having built something real and beautiful with your own hands, is something every single homeowner deserves to experience in their own backyard. But we weren't finished yet, because the difference between a good backyard transformation and a truly great one comes down to the final layer of details that most people either rush through or skip entirely. Those details are what we tackled on days 6 and 7, and they are what took this space from nice to absolutely stunning. The first finishing detail was mulch, and I cannot overstate how transformative a fresh layer of mulch is to a planting bed. We used shredded hardwood mulch, applied at a depth of about 3 inches across every single bed, and the effect was immediate and dramatic. The beds went from looking like a collection of individual plants sitting in dirt to looking like a cohesive, intentional, designed landscape. Mulch does several powerful things all at once. It suppresses weed growth, retains soil moisture so you water less frequently, regulates soil temperature to protect plant roots during both summer heat and winter cold, and as it breaks down over time, it actually feeds the soil with organic matter. The one rule to follow with mulch that most beginners get wrong is to keep it pulled back a couple of inches from the base of every plant stem and tree trunk. Piling mulch up against stems traps moisture, invites disease, and can slowly kill even the healthiest plants. Keep it away from the stems, spread it generously everywhere else, and your beds will look professionally maintained all season long. The second finishing detail was edging, and this is the secret weapon of every landscape that looks sharp, clean, and intentional. We used a half-moon edging tool to cut a crisp, clean line between the lawn and every planting bed, creating a defined boundary that separates the green of the grass from the rich, dark color of the mulched beds. That contrast, bright green lawn against deep brown mulch, is one of the most visually powerful things you can do in a garden, and it costs almost nothing. Clean edges tell the eye that this space was designed on purpose, that someone cared about every detail. It elevates the entire landscape in a way that is completely disproportionate to the amount of effort it actually takes to achieve. The third and final detail was lighting, and if you want your backyard to feel like a true outdoor living space rather than just a yard you look at during the day, lighting is non-negotiable. We installed simple solar-powered pathway lights along the edges of the Flagstone patio and tucked low-voltage spotlights at the base of the Carl Förster grasses in the planting beds. When the sun went down on day 7 and those lights came on for the first time, the backyard looked like an entirely different world, warm, inviting, and magical in a way that no daytime photograph could fully capture. Outdoor lighting extends the usability of your space well into the evening hours, and for anyone who works long days and only gets to enjoy their yard after dinner, that matters enormously. Solar pathway lights require zero wiring, zero electrician visits, and cost almost nothing to run, making them one of the highest return investments you can make in your outdoor space. We finished day 7 by setting out a simple outdoor furniture arrangement on the patio, a round table, 4 chairs, and a pair of comfortable lounge chairs facing the garden beds, and sitting down in a space that 1 week ago had been completely unusable. The grass was green and soft underfoot. The planting beds were rich with color and texture. The patio was solid and level. The lighting was warm and welcoming. Every single element had been chosen, placed, and built with intention, and the result was a backyard that felt like an extension of the home rather than an afterthought behind it. The most important thing this entire 7-day transformation proved is that you do not need an unlimited budget, a team of professionals, or months of weekends to create an outdoor space you are genuinely proud of. You need a clear sequence of steps, the right materials, the right plants for your region, and the willingness to start. Grade your ground first. Lay your sod with proper watering discipline. Build your hardscape on a solid gravel base. Layer your planting beds using the thriller, filler, and spiller method. Prepare your soil with compost before anything goes in the ground. Finish with mulch, clean edges, and warm lighting, and watch your backyard become the place your whole family actually wants to spend time. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.